So we're reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert K. Kiyosaki. We are on the chapter Overcoming Obstacles, page number 206 of the book and 145 of the PDF.
Overcoming bad habits. Our lives are a reflection of our habits more than our education. After seeing the movie Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, a friend said, "I'd love to have a body like Schwarzenegger." Most of the guys nodded in agreement. I even heard he was really puny and skinny at one time. Another friend added, "Yay, I heard that too," another one said. "I heard he has a habit of working out almost every day in the gym." "Yeah, I bet he has to." "Nah," said the group cynic. Bet he was born that way." Besides, let's stop talking about Arnold and get some beers. This is an example of habits controlling behavior. I remember asking my rich dad about the habits of the rich. Instead of answering me outright, he wanted me to learn through example, as usual. "When does your dad pay his bills?" Rich dad asked. "The first of the month," I said. "Does he have anything left over?" he asked. "Very little," I said. "That's the main reason he struggles," said Rich Dad. "He has bad habits. Your dad pays everyone else first. He pays himself last, but only if he has anything left over." "Which he usually doesn't," I said. "But he has to pay his bills, doesn't he?" "You're saying he shouldn't pay his bills?" "Of course not," said Rich Dad. "I firmly believe in paying my bills on time. I just pay myself first, before I pay even the government." "But what happens if you don't have enough money?" I asked. "What do you do then?" "The same," said Rich Dad. "I'll still pay myself first. Even if I'm short of money, my asset column is far more important to me than the government." "But," I said, "don't they come after you?" "Yes, if you don't pay," said Rich Dad. "Look, I did not say not to pay. I just said I pay myself first, even if I'm short of money." "But," I replied, "how do you do that?" "It's not how. The question is why," Rich Dad said. "Okay, why?" "Motivation," said Rich Dad. "Who do you think will complain louder if I don't pay them? Me or my creditors?" "Your creditors will definitely scream louder than you," I said, responding to the obvious. "You wouldn't say anything if you didn't pay yourself." So you see, after paying myself, the pressure to pay my taxes and the other creditors is so great that it forces me to seek other forms of income. The pressure to pay becomes my motivation. I've worked extra jobs, started other companies, traded in the stock market, anything just to make sure those guys don't start yelling at me. That pressure made me work harder, forced me to think, and all in all, made me smarter and more active when it comes to money. If I had paid myself last, I would have felt no pressure, but I'd be broke. So, it is the fear of the government or other people you owe money to that motivates you. "That's right," said Rich Dad. "You see, government bill collectors are big bullies. So are bill collectors in general. Most people give in to these bullies. They pay them and never pay themselves. You know the story of the 98-pound weakling who gets sand kicked in his face?" I nodded. "I see that ad for weightlifting and bodybuilding lessons in the comic books all the time." Well, most people let the bullies kick sand in their faces. I decided to use the fear of the bully to make me stronger. Others get weaker. Forcing myself to think about how to make extra money is like going to the gym and working out weights. The more I work my mental money muscles out, the stronger I get. Now I'm not afraid of those bullies. I liked what Rich Dad was saying. So if I pay myself first, I get financially stronger, mentally and fiscally. Rich Dad nodded. And if I pay myself last or not at all, I get weaker. So people like bosses, managers, tax collectors, bill collectors, and landlords push me around all my life just because I don't have good money habits. Rich Dad nodded, just like the 98-pound weakling.
So what is he attempting to say here? That from whatever money he is getting, the first thing he does is invest the money in assets, right? So he takes out a percentage of that money and puts it into assets. And only after that, he starts doing what else he needs to do. But with most people, what happens? You first pay whatever is due, your bills, etc. And then whatever is saved, that is what you invest. He is going the opposite way. He is first investing and then paying his bills. This is another technique I've used with a lot of people who have actually been in debt, and I've told them that you need to start investing in fixed deposits first, or make some investment which will start generating revenue, right? And then take care of your bills. And it has actually worked for quite a number of these people.
Overcoming arrogance. What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money. Every time I have been arrogant, I have lost money. Because when I'm arrogant, I truly believe that what I don't know is not important. Rich Dad would often tell me, I have found that many people use arrogance to try to hide their own ignorance. It often happens when I am discussing financial statements with accountants or even other investors. They try to bluster their way through the discussion. It is clear to me that they don't know what they're talking about. They're not lying, but they are not telling the truth. There are many people in the world of money, finances, and investments who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Most people in the money industry are just spouting off sales pitches like used car salesmen. When you know you are ignorant in a subject, start educating yourself by finding an expert in the field or a book on the subject.
So this becomes extremely important. When we read the four agreements, there were four tenets of that four agreements. The first one was be impeccable with your word. Number two, don't take things personally. Do not make assumptions and do your best. Right. So now, whenever we don't know something about a subject and we are attempting to talk about that subject, we are making assumptions and we are not doing our best. So, first, before speaking, we need to start listening, right? Listen to what the other person is saying, and then go back, do your research, and then do what needs to be done. Educate yourself. Learn about the topic before talking. And this is something that I have seen in myself also. I also used to start talking about a subject which I really didn't know. From now and for the last few years, what I've been making a conscious effort about this, that even when we are having a conversation among friends, I attempt to listen more and not say anything if I don't know something about the subject, because unnecessarily just saying something based on making on an assumption that you've made is actually depleting you, because in your heart of hearts you know that you really don't know, right? And that makes it very, very important. So we need to start educating ourselves.
Chapter 8, Getting Started. There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it. I wish I could say acquiring wealth was easy for me, but it wasn't. So, in response to the question, how do I start? I offer the thought process I go through on a day to day basis. It really is easy to find great deals. I promise you that. It's just like riding a bike. After a little wobbling, it's a piece of cake. But when it comes to money, it takes determination to get through the wobbling. That's a personal thing. To find $1 million deals of a lifetime requires us to call on our financial genius. I believe that each of us has a financial genius within us. The problem is that our financial genius lies asleep, waiting to be called upon. It lies asleep because our culture has educated us into believing that the love of money is the root of all evil. It has encouraged us to learn a profession so we can work for money, but failed to teach us how to have money work for us. It taught us not to worry about our financial future because our company or the government would take care of us when our working days are over. However, it is our children educated in the same school system who will end up paying for this absence of financial education. The message is still to work hard, earn money, and spend it. And when we run short, we can always borrow more.
So this is the basis on which America runs, right? Borrow on your future earnings, but that is not how we should be actually running.
Unfortunately, 90% of the Western world subscribes to the above dogma simply because it's easier to find a job and work for money. If you're not one of the masses, I offer you the following 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. I simply offer you the steps I have personally followed. If you want to follow some of them, great. If you don't, make up your own. Your financial genius is smart enough to develop its own list. While in Peru, I asked a gold miner of 45 years how he was so confident about finding a gold mine. He replied, there is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it. And I would say that is true. In real estate, I can go out and in a day come up with 4 or 5 great potential deals, while the average person will go out and find nothing, even looking in the same neighborhood. The reason is that they have not taken the time to develop their financial genius. I offer you the following 10 steps as a process to develop your God given powers, powers over which only you have control. Number one, find a reason greater than reality, the power of spirit. If you ask most people if they would like to be rich or financially free, they would say yes. But then reality sets in. The road seems too long with too many hills to climb. It's easier to just work for money and hand the excess over to your broker.
So most people, and I've had many people tell me this. I've always told people save. You need to get rid of uh, the assets which are not working for you. If you have a loan, the interest meter never stops 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The meter keeps running, right? You need to get rid of debt as soon as possible. So if you have an asset which is not income generating, you need to get rid of it to get out of debt. And it's a long road, to become financially free. You have to keep at it, you have to keep at it, you have to keep at it, so that your asset column keeps growing, and your passive income from the asset column actually starts to take care of all your needs. This is extremely important when you're looking at being happy. Unless you're financially happy, it's very difficult to be totally happy.
I once met a young woman who had dreams of swimming for the US Olympic team. The reality was that she had to get up every morning at 4 o'clock to swim for 3 hours before going to school. She did not party with her friends on Saturday night. She had to study and keep her grades up, just like everyone else. When I asked her what fueled her superhuman ambition and sacrifice, she simply said, I do it for myself and the people I love. It's love that gets me over the hurdles and sacrifices. A reason or a purpose is a combination of wants and don't wants. When people ask me what my reason for wanting to be rich is, I tell them that it is a combination of deep emotional wants and don't wants.
So whenever we have a Lux, right, we tend to say that we are doing it for other people, but in actual fact, whatever we do in life, we do for ourselves. We may do it because of our love for someone else, but it is not for them that we are doing it. We are doing it because of our love for the other person. So we need to take responsibility for all our actions, whatever we are doing. Many times parents will tell, I did it for you, but actually the parent is always doing it for themselves. This is something that we need to really understand.
I will list a few. First, the don't wants, for they create the wants. I don't want to work all my life. I don't want what my parents aspired for, which was job security and a house in the suburbs. I don't like being an employee. I hated that my dad always missed my football games because he was so busy working on his career. I hated it when my dad worked hard all his life and the government took most of what he worked for at his death. He could not even pass on what he worked so hard for when he died. The rich don't do that. They work hard and pass it on to their children. Now the wants. I want to be free to travel the world and live in the lifestyle I love. I want to be young when I do this. I want to simply be free. I want control over my time and my life. I want money to work for me. Those are my deep seated emotional reasons. What are yours? If they are not strong enough, then the reality of the road ahead may be greater than your reasons. I have lost money and been set back many times, but it was the deep emotional reasons that kept me standing up and going forward. I wanted to be free by age 40, but it took me until I was 47, with many learning experiences along the way. As I said, I wish I could say it was easy. It wasn't. But it wasn't that hard either. I've learned that without a strong reason or purpose, anything in life is hard.
So this is again what we are coming to a Lux, right? Even in the Vedanta talks, he's keeping on talking in the Gita also that everything is according to your Lux. What is the purpose? If you don't have a purpose in life, you're like a rudderless boat. Okay. So it's very important to have a Lux. Now your Lux may be, I just want to be a housewife. Perfectly okay. But identify your Lux. It's extremely important. If you do not have a purpose, you do not have a Lux, you do not have a destination, then you don't know what you're doing in your life, right? So the first thing is to identify your Lux, because that is what drives you. That is the driving force which drives you to do whatever activity you're doing to the best of your ability. Now, again, this is another thing that in the Vedanta talks, Nagarji keeps saying that we must be observant of whatever we are doing, whether it is taking us towards our Lakshya or not. Because if you're doing stuff which is not taking you towards your Lakshya, then it is not serving you any purpose. For example, this Olympic swimmer, she was not going for meeting her friends on Sundays. Why was she doing that? Because her aim, her Lakshya was to become an Olympic swimmer. For that, she had to do certain things. So whatever activity she was doing, it was harnessed and targeted towards getting her to be the Olympic swimmer. So a Lux will give you purpose. It will give you direction. It will give you disha to go where you need to go.
If you do not have a strong reason, there is no sense reading further. It will sound like too much work. Number 2, make daily choices. The power of choice. Choice is the main reason people want to live in a free country. We want the power to choose. Financially, with every dollar we get in our hands, we hold the power to choose our future, to be rich, poor, or middle class. Our spending habits reflect who we are. Poor people simply have poor spending habits. The benefit I had as a boy was that I loved playing Monopoly constantly. Nobody told me Monopoly was only for kids, so I just kept playing the game as an adult. I also had a rich dad who pointed out to me the difference between an asset and a liability. So, a long time ago, as a little boy, I chose to be rich. And I knew that all I had to do was learn to acquire assets, real assets. My best friend Mike had an asset column handed to him, but he still had to choose to learn to keep it. Many rich families lose their assets in the next generation simply because there was no one trained to be a good steward over their assets.
So what happens? We need to constantly build our assets. If we are building liabilities, we are in for trouble. And it also naturally depends on your habits, right? What are you spending on? Are you spending on creating liabilities or you're spending on creating assets?
Most people choose not to be rich. For 90% of the population, being rich is too much of a hassle. So they invent sayings that go, I'm not interested in money. I'll never be rich. I don't have to worry. I'm still young. When I make some money, then I'll think about my future. My husband wife handles the finances. The problem with those statements is that they rob the person who chooses to think such thoughts of two things. One is time, which is your most precious asset. The second is learning. Having no money should not be an excuse to not learn, but that is a choice we all make daily. The choice of what we do with our time, our money, and what we put in our heads. That is the power of choice. All of us have choice. I just choose to be rich and I make that choice every day.
So again, we have to time. Once it's gone, right? Time is very precious. It's one of your biggest assets. Now, how you use your time becomes extremely important. Are you wasting your time and not creating any value for yourself? Or are you utilizing your time to create value for yourself? Having said that, I clearly understand that some time, kind of a downtime, some kind of entertainment is extremely important for all of us. But having said that, most of our time must go into learning more, educating ourselves, and not let the time go to waste. It is extremely important, right? So learning, growing is, I think, the most important thing that you can do with your time.
Invest first in education. In reality, the only real asset you have is your mind, the most powerful tool we have dominion over. Each of us has the choice of what we put in our brain once we are old enough. You can watch TV, read golf magazines, or go to ceramics class or a class on financial planning. You choose. Most people simply buy investments rather than first investing in learning about investing.
So again, there are many kinds of things that you can use your time, right? Now, if you're just watching MTV the whole day, unless you want to become a singer, you want to become a producer or something which is taking you towards your goal again. What your goal could be financial security, being happy, whatever it is, then it is okay. But if you're just watching MTV for no rhyme or reason, then there is no point in watching MTV for no rhyme or reason. You're wasting your time. So you need to make proper choices. How are you really investing your time?
A friend of mine recently had her apartment burglarized. The thieves took her electronics and left all the books. And we all have that same choice. 90% of the population buys TV sets and only about 10% buy business books. So, what do? I go to seminars. I like it when they're at least 2 days long because I like to immerse myself in a subject. In 1973, I was watching this guy on TV who was advertising a 3 day seminar on how to buy real estate for nothing down. I spent $385, and that course has made me at least $2 million, if not more. But more importantly, it bought me life. I don't have to work for the rest of my life because of that one course. I go to at least two such courses every year.
So now this is extremely important. And I think people of our age, and I understand that most people are in our age bracket here, but the fact of the matter is that you must encourage your children to start attending seminars, to start attending programs so that they can enhance their growth, enhance their learning. For myself, I attend at least 4 programs a year on the subject that I am dealing with, and that is where the growth comes in, that is where that understanding comes in. Okay, so it is extremely important for us to keep learning, to keep growing, to keep understanding stuff that will take us to our ultimate purpose.
I love CDs and audiobooks. The reason I can easily review what I just heard. I was listening to an investor say something I completely disagreed with. Instead of becoming arrogant and critical, I simply listened to that 5 minute stretch at least 20 times, maybe even more. But suddenly, by keeping my mind open, I understood why he said what he said. It was like magic. I felt like I had a window into the mind of one of the greatest investors of our time. I gained tremendous insight into the vast resources of his education and experience.
So again, over here, I constantly say, and I constantly repeat programs also. The reason for that is that when you hear things for the first time, it may not sink in. But when you repeat the program, it sinks in much deeper into your system. In fact, we've had this one lady, she has attended the excursion workshop 4 times during the pandemic. And she has been, and in the last 6 months, she's attended it 4 times. And she says, and she clearly shares with everyone that every time that I've attended it, the experience deepens. It enhances my understanding and it enhances the way that I am using the tools, right? And this is true for everyone. So I really recommend that whatever programs you take, after some time, definitely repeat the program, because you will always get more from the program when you repeat the program than what you get for the first time. So you really deepen your understanding of the process.
The net result, I still have the old way I used to think, and now I have a new way of looking at the same problem or situation. I have two ways to analyze a problem or trend, and that is priceless. Today, I often say, how would Donald Trump do this, or Warren Buffett, or George Soros. The only way I can access their vast mental power is to be humble enough to read or listen to what they have to say. Arrogant or critical people are often people with low self esteem who are afraid of taking risks. That's because if you learn something new, you are then required to make mistakes in order to fully understand what you have learned.
So this is very important, right? Having different perspectives, having views of the same thing from different angles, right? When you can do that for yourself, your understanding of that gets enhanced. So we constantly keep saying that if I look at something from here, I can only see so much. If I look at it from here, I can see so much. If I look at it from here, I can see so much. So the more expanded your state of consciousness, the more expanded your points of view, the way that you look at something, the better off you will automatically be in taking decisions. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is that a successful person takes 7 out of 10 correct decisions, and an unsuccessful person may take about 4 correct decisions out of 10. So the more information we have, that automatically results in our being able to take better decisions for ourselves. That's why looking at it from different perspectives rather than hanging on to your own perspective only becomes very, very important. And this is what I find so beautiful about the Monroe process, is that it doesn't impinge in anything that you're doing. It will simply enhance whatever you're doing because it allows you to view it from different states of consciousness. And that makes things beautiful around you.
If you have read this far, arrogance is not one of your problems. Arrogant people rarely read or listen to experts. Why should they? They are the center of the universe. There are so many intelligent people who argue or defend when a new idea clashes with the way they think. In this case, their so called intelligence combined with arrogance equals ignorance. Each of us knows people who are highly educated or believe they are smart, but their balance sheet paints a different picture. A truly intelligent person welcomes new ideas, for new ideas can add to your synergy of other accumulated ideas. Listening is more important than talking. If that were not true, God would not have given us 2 ears and only one mouth. Too many people think with their mouths instead of listening in order to absorb new ideas and possibilities. They argue instead of asking questions.
This is beautiful, right? They argue instead of asking questions. Now, if someone is saying something that doesn't work with your point of view, ask questions to really understand from where they are coming. What is the reason why they are saying something? So that you deepen your understanding. It doesn't mean that you have to change what you're thinking about the process is, but getting more information and asking questions. So the trick is actually framing the question properly. And this is again something that we do again in the excursion workshop when we are going into that expanded state of focus 12. How do you ask a question so that you'll get a proper answer becomes very important. So listening, becoming aware is actually more important than speaking. So the more we observe, the more we listen, the more we become aware, the better off we are in everything that we really do.
I take a long view on my wealth. I do not subscribe to the get rich quick mentality most lottery players or casino gamblers have. I may go in and out of stocks, but I am long on education. If you want to fly an airplane, I advise taking lessons first. I am always shocked at people who buy stocks or real estate but never invest in their greatest asset, their mind. Just because you bought a house or two does not make you an expert at real estate.
So again, becoming an expert takes time. It takes effort. Now again, the The shift is from effortfulness to effortlessness, right? So you need to give time. You need to enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy what you do, then it becomes effortless on its own. The fact of the matter is, you need to pay attention to whatever you are doing and keep enhancing and growing your knowledge and information about that thing that you are doing. So it's always that, the more persistent you are, the tenacity with which you do something really plays a big part.
Number 3, choose friends carefully. The power of association. First of all, I do not choose my friends by their financial statements. I have friends who have actually taken a vow of poverty, as well as friends who earn millions every year. The point is that I learn from all of them. Now I will admit that there are people I have actually sought out because they had money. But I was not after their money. I was seeking their knowledge. In some cases, these people who had money have become dear friends. I've noticed that my friends with money talk about money. They don't do it to brag, they are interested in the subject. So I learn from them and they learn from me. My friends who are in dire financial straits do not like talking about money, business, or investing. They often think it rude or unintellectual. I also learn from my friends who struggle financially. I find out what not to do.
So again, we can learn from everyone, provided we have an open mind that I'm willing to learn, right? Most of the time we feel like giving gyan, but the most important thing in our life is actually to take gyan.
I have several friends who have generated over $1 billion in their short lifetimes. The three of them report the same phenomenon. Their friends who have no money have never come to them to ask them how they did it. But they do come asking for one of two things, or both, a loan or a job.
So what are you focused on, right? Are you interested in learning or empowering yourself or just taking a dole? So what is awareness all about? Awareness is all about empowering, so that you empower yourself and then do it for yourself. And this is something, again, I'm repeating, I learned the hard way when we used to go and rectify things for people. But again, I found it was coming back to square one. So it's very important to understand things and then do it for yourself. And that can only be done if you are educating yourself. I find it, again, I don't want to put myself on the left side of the grid, but it is amazing to me that people can go and spend $7,500 in a dinner, but they're not willing to spend that on their own education. So,
Rupees.
rupees or whatever. According to me, the idea should be that you must segregate a part of your income, especially for educating yourself and your family members. And this should be done. That is asset building. That is your basic asset. Everything can be taken away from you except your knowledge. And that is why you need to start investing in yourself. And there is no age to it, let me tell you. I know for a fact that people who are 70 years old have started taking classes in computer usage, etc., right? And it's encourageable in the sense that you need to encourage this. Learning new things actually activates the brain. It makes you more healthy, it makes you more aware. So spending and investing in yourself is something that we all must do, which is something that we've not been taught in our school and college, etc., to actually do. But we must be on the lookout and really start doing courses, etc., which help us out.
Warning, don't listen to poor or frightened people. I have such friends, and while I love them dearly, they are the chicken littles of life. To them, when it comes to money, especially investments, it's always the sky is falling, the sky is falling. They can always tell you why something won't work. The problem is that people listen to them. But people who blindly accept doom and gloom information are also chicken littles. As that old saying goes, birds of a feather flock together.
So it is said, right, that if you figure out the 5 people that a person hangs out with, you know what kind of a person that is, right? So it's very important that who are you hanging out with? Who are you associating with? We have to start becoming aware of that. Are the people who we are hanging around with creating value in our lives? Or are they creating no value in our life? This is something that we all must really pay attention to.
If you watch business channels on TV, they often have a panel of so called experts. One expert will say the market is going to crash, and the other will say it's going to boom. If you're smart, you listen to both. Keep your mind open because both have valid points. Unfortunately, most poor people listen to Chicken Little. I have had many close friends to try to talk me out of a deal or an investment. Not long ago, a friend told me he was excited because he found a 6% certificate of deposit. I told him I earn 16% from the state government. The next day, he sent me an article about why my investment was dangerous. I have received 16% for years now, and he still receives 6%. I would say that one of the hardest things about wealth building is to be true to yourself and to be willing to not go along with the crowd. This is because in the market, it is usually the crowd that shows up late that is slaughtered. If a great deal is on the front page, it's too late in most instances. Look for a new deal. As we used to say as surfers, there is always another wave. People who hurry and catch a wave late usually are the ones who wipe out. Smart investors don't time the markets. If they miss a wave, they search for the next one and get themselves in position. This is hard for most investors because buying what is not popular is frightening. Timid investors are like sheep going along with the crowd, or their greed gets them in when wise investors have already taken their profits and moved on. Wise investors buy an investment when it's not popular. They know their profits are made when they buy, not when they sell. They wait patiently. As I said, they do not time the market. Just like a surfer, they get in position for the next big swell.
So this is a very nice analogy that today when you're surfing, you actually have to wait for the wave to come, right? So you're putting yourself into a position where you are allowing yourself to ride the wave. So again, this requires knowledge. This requires information. So if you're not educated and informed about what is happening, it is very difficult to ride the wave.
It's all insider trading. There are forms of insider trading that are illegal, and there are forms of insider trading that are legal. But either way, it's insider trading. The only distinction is how far away from the inside are you. The reason you want to have rich friends is because that is where the money is made. It's made on information. You want to hear about the next boom. Get in and get out for the next bust. I'm not saying do it illegally, but the sooner you know, the better your chances are for profits with minimal risk. That is what friends are for, and that is financial intelligence.
So again, people who are around you. So people who are making money are around you. They know how to do that. So most of the time, the talk that they have, if you become aware of it, you can use it to your advantage.
Number four, master a formula and then learn a new one. The power of learning quickly. In order to make bread, every baker follows a recipe, even if it's only held in their head. The same is true for making money. Most of us have heard the saying, "You are what you eat." I have a different slant. I say, "You become what you study." In other words, be careful what you learn because your mind is so powerful that you become what you put in your head. For example, if you study cooking, you then tend to cook. If you don't want to be a cook anymore, then you need to study something else. When it comes to money, the masses generally have one basic formula. They learned in school, and it's this: work for money. The predominant formula I see in the world is that every day, millions of people get up, go to work, earn money, pay bills, balance checkbooks, buy some mutual funds, and go back to work. That is the basic formula or recipe.
So basically the rat race, you're stuck in a cycle and you're constantly doing that. You're not doing anything to really get out of that cycle.
If you're tired of what you're doing or you're not making enough, it's simply a case of changing the formula by which you make money. Years ago, when I was 26, I took a weekend class called How to Buy Real Estate Foreclosures. I learned a formula. The next trick was to have the discipline to actually put into action what I had learned. That is where most people stop. For 3 years, while working for Xerox, I spent my spare time learning to master the art of buying foreclosures. I've made several $1 million using that formula. So after I mastered that formula, I went in search for other formulas. For many of the classes, I did not directly use the information I learned, but I always learned something new. I have attended classes designed for derivative traders, commodity option traders, and cowlogists. I was way out of my league, being in a room full of people with doctorates in nuclear physics and space science. Yet, I learned a lot that made my stock and real estate investing more meaningful and lucrative.
So no knowledge and education is bad because you'll always pick on it. For example, we are constantly referring to all the books that we've read in the pandemic. We're constantly referring to other stuff that we've done in our lives, right? So the more you learn, the more you can pick, and the whole thing becomes like a jigsaw puzzle, right? The slots start to fall into place. But if you don't know, then you're not going to be able to put the slot in. So that's why educating ourselves and learning is so, so important. It cannot be stressed.
Most junior colleges and community colleges have classes on financial planning and buying traditional investments. They are good places to start, but I always search for a faster formula. That is why, on a fairly regular basis, I make more in a day than many people will make in their lifetime. Another side note: in today's fast changing world, it's not so much what you know anymore that counts, because often what you know is old. It is how fast you learn. That skill is priceless. It's priceless in finding faster formulas, recipes, if you will, for making dough. Working hard for money is an old formula born in the day of cavemen.
So again, you have to use your intelligence, right, to find ways to do things more efficiently, more effectively, and quicker. And that can only happen when you have more knowledge, when you have more information. You use that to find a faster and a quicker and more effective and efficient way of doing things.
Number 5, pay yourself first, the power of self discipline. If you cannot get control of yourself, do not try to get rich. It makes no sense to invest, make money, and blow it. It is the lack of self discipline that causes most lottery winners to go broke soon after winning millions. It is the lack of self discipline that causes people who get a raise to immediately go out and buy a new car or take a cruise.
So again, it's very important that to build your asset column. If you're going to splurge when you get an extra windfall, it's going to get taken away from you. And what he's saying over here is a fact. Most lottery winners ultimately land up in worse shape than they were before they bought the lottery ticket, because that money they can't handle it, right? So being able to handle resources becomes a very important caliber that we all need to develop.
It is difficult to say which of the 10 steps is the most important, but of all the steps, this step is probably the most difficult to master if it is not already a part of your makeup. I would venture to say that personal self discipline is the number one delineating factor between the rich, the poor, and the middle class. Simply put, people who have low self esteem and low tolerance for financial pressure can never be rich. As I have said, a lesson learned from my rich dad was that the world will push you around. The world pushes people around not because other people are bullies, but because the individual lacks internal control and discipline. People who lack internal fortitude often become victims of those who have self discipline. In the entrepreneur classes I teach, I constantly remind people to not focus on their product, service, or widget, but to focus on developing management skills. The three most important management skills necessary to start your own business are management of number one, cash flow, number two, people, and three, personal time. I would say the skills to manage these three apply to anything, not just entrepreneurs. The three matter in the way you live your life as an individual or as a part of a family, a business, a charitable organization, a city, or a nation. Each of these skills is enhanced by the mastery of self discipline. I do not take the saying, pay yourself first, lightly.
So again, if you really see, pay yourself first in your cash flows, in the management of the people around you, and in managing your own time, right? You have to pay yourself first. So how do you pay yourself first? You find the time to educate yourself, to learn something, to build your asset column, to have people who enhance your life around you rather than take things away from you.
ஃபார்ம் அவன் வந்து சைன் பண்ணுங்க மீதில நான் பண்ணிக்கிறேன்னு அவர்கிட்ட
The statement, pay yourself first, comes from George Clason's book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Millions of copies have been sold, but while millions of people freely repeat that powerful statement, few follow the advice. As I said, financial literacy allows one to read numbers, and numbers tell the story. By looking at a person's income statement and balance sheet, I can readily see if people who spout the words, pay yourself first, actually practice what they preach. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's review the financial statements of people who pay themselves first against someone who doesn't. Study the diagrams and see if you can pick up some distinctions. Again, it has to do with understanding cash flow, which tells the story. Most people look at the numbers and miss the story.
Okay, so what is happening over here? from the job, you're getting an income and salary. First, you put it into assets. The assets then pay for your expenses, which then again the assets are generating more income, right? So the liabilities are not created at all. The assets that you have created from your income pay for the expenses and create more income. That is what is being said over. Shivanga, you're muted.
Do you see it? The diagram reflects the action of individuals who choose to pay themselves first. Each month, they allocate money to their asset column before they pay their monthly expenses. Although millions of people have read Clay's book and understand the words pay yourself first, in reality, they pay themselves last. Now I can hear the howls from those of you who sincerely believe in paying your bills first. And I can hear all the responsible people who pay their bills on time. I'm not saying be irresponsible and not pay your bills. All I am saying is to do what the book says, which is pay yourself first. And the previous diagram is the correct accounting picture of that action.
So now what happens for most people? They have a job, they get an income, they pay their expenses, and all the salary goes out, all the income goes out, taking care of expenses. So they are not building their asset fund.
If you can truly begin to understand power of cash flow, you will soon realize what is wrong with the previous diagram, or why 90% of people work hard all their lives and need government support, like Social Security, when they are no longer able to work. Kim and I have had many bookkeepers, accountants, and bankers who have had a major problem with this way of looking at pay yourself first. The reason is that these financial professionals actually do what the masses do. They pay themselves last. There have been many times in my life when, for whatever reason, cash flow was far less than my bills. I still paid myself first. My accountant and bookkeeper screamed in panic. They're going to come after you. The IRS is going to put you in jail. You're going to ruin your credit rating. They'll cut off the electricity. I still paid myself first. Why, you ask? Because that's what the story, the richest man in Babylon, was all about: the power of self discipline and the power of internal fortitude. As my rich dad taught me the first month I worked for him, most people allow the world to push them around. A bill collector calls and you pay or else. A sales clerk says, oh, just put it on your charge card. Your real estate agent tells you, go ahead. The government allows you a tax deduction on your home. That is what the book is really about: having the guts to go in against the tide and get rich. You may not be weak, but when it comes to money, many people get wimpy. I'm not saying be irresponsible. The reason I don't have high credit card debt, the doodad debt, is because I pay myself first. The reason I minimize my income is because I don't want to pay it to the government. That is why my income comes from my asset column through a Nevada corporation. If I work for money, the government takes it. Although I pay my bills last, I am financially astute enough to not get into a tough financial situation. I don't like consumer debt. I actually have liabilities that are higher than 99% of the population, but I don't pay for them. Other people pay for my liabilities. They are called tenants. So rule number 1 is paying yourself first is don't get into consumer debt in the first place. Although I pay my bills last, I set it up to have only small, unimportant bills that are due. When I occasionally come up short, I still pay myself first. I let the creditors and even the government scream. I like it when they get tough. Why? Because those guys do me a favor. They inspire me to go out and create more money. So I pay myself first, invest the money, and let the creditors yell. I generally pay them right away anyway. Kim and I have excellent credit. We don't cave into pressure and spend our savings or liquidate stocks to pay for consumer debt. That is not too financially intelligent. Should we stop here?
Okay.